Thank you for joining us for another episode of Real Japan.
Yay!
I am Josh, your host. My co-host is...
This is Jason.
And we're joined tonight by...
It's me, Stacy.
It's apparently just turned Italian. This week we are reviewing a classic movie. One Speed Racer, made all the way back in 2008.
Yes, very classic.
So old.
But it feels like it's from the 60s.
Well, the original series, I believe, was from the 60s.
Yeah, I believe so. I think it's a classic one, so that a lot of people, at least, back in my day, back into the 90s, is one of those ones that people would kind of pick up and kind of watch along with, like, Star Blazers. I was going to say Evangeline, but it's not Evangeline. Voltron.
Yes, Voltron.
Voltron.
Yeah.
It has lions in it.
Yes, it sure does. Original Voltron, not Netflix.
Yeah, kids, it existed before.
Man, there's some bitter old people joining me today. So a little about this movie. It was in production hell for 16 years.
Yeah.
Before it was made. It had a whole slew of producers and actors. Johnny Depp was slated to play the main character, and then Vince Vaughn had producer credits for 3 years and was going to be Racer X, one of the other characters. And so it would have been a very different movie
yes.
if any of these other ones had been done. But what we got was the Wachowski brothers.
Now Wachowski sisters.
Taking the lead in 2008, fresh off their success, or not success. I don't remember when the Matrix movies all came out.
I think all of them were out by that point. So.
Yeah.
Oh, so low point. So they needed to make some money.
Yes.
And they wanted to reach a broader audience. So they didn't want to do another R-rated film. So that's why they decided to helm this project and make a more kid-friendly movie. Even though I would say, I don't know, Matrix 1 was kid-friendly enough.
Nah.
Maybe a little less
the
kid-friendly.
first movie, maybe, but once you got into the sex orgy, that was...
I don't remember that part. But I was just going to say, one of the first animes I ever watched was Fist of the North Star, the movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's the one where he goes around punching people, saying they're already dead and their heads explode.
Right.
And it's either that or Akira. I watched them both in the same year, and that was my introduction to anime. And yeah, I was, I don't know, 10, 12.
Yeah, it's a good starting point.
It's fine. They were shonen aimed series in Japan.
Back when shonen meant shonen.
Back when shonen was badass, and before it became all friendship and magic, it was people punching others and their heads exploding.
Yeah, and more darkly inclined.
Oh, well, violence is fine as long as you don't say any naughty words.
Yeah, and you can't show any tits or anything.
Yeah, well...
So yeah, back to Speed Racer didn't have any tits on
So
display.
yeah, so Speed Racer's at all not like what we're describing. Now, when I watched the few bits of Speed Racer that I watched was back in the 90s, so I'm not really the expert on this at all.
I'm not sure if I ever saw any Speed Racer outside of just knowing the memes, I guess, from the way it was dubbed back in the day. Oh no, haha, I'm going here, haha, haha, what?
Is that how that went? I don't remember that point.
Yeah, the dub versions were that way.
Okay.
Yeah, because I don't know if they bothered to read the Japanese and translate it, or if they were just trying to film.
They did the full Voltron and just rewrote everything.
That was the time then.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're oh, well, we just got the animation. We'll just try and match their lip movements.
Yeah.
And we'll just make a plot as we go along.
They kind of got stuff every episode saying that, oh, spoilers, Racer X's Speed's brother.
What?
What?
Probably because anybody listening to this who hasn't watched any of this doesn't know who those people are.
Yes.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter.
Jason, so you watched some Speed Racer back in the day?
Yeah, I watched a few episodes here or there, kind of the same.
So this is going to be one of the few times that Jason is the animation expert on the topic.
Is that how that works?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're the expert, and we'll come to you with all Speed Racer questions.
Okay, I'll be more master.
About what's canon or not.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't think it's going to really come up because I think they stayed actually pretty true to the original, from what I remember.
At least the general overall.
Yeah, the general. Yeah, well, okay. So the general overall is that there's a family that makes cars and they race them. The family name is Racer, so you got Pops Racer and
Mom Racer.
Is it his Mom Racer?
That's what it said on the credits I was just looking at.
This is at least for the live action movie. And you guys can't see it, but I put quotes around that live action. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
It's all live action, but it's very interesting the way they decided to translate to the screen. Mm-hmm. And then you have Speed Racer, the son, the titular character.
Yep. Yeah. Did they say the brother's name?
I don't remember.
I don't remember.
It's just Brother Racer.
Probably.
Probably. Based on that, it's probably just Brother
yeah.
Racer.
But then
Big Brother Racer, because there's also the other kid.
Yeah, there's Little Brother Racer.
Who actually has a name. There's Chim Chim, which is the monkey, and then, which I guess still counts as a brother with the way they all operate.
Yeah, they didn't have to explain it. I like that they didn't explain it. Like, other characters that came to the family are like, why is there a chimp here? But we'll just continue on. But at least they're like, this is weird, and they decided to go on.
There's also like that mechanic guy who didn't seem to be a son, but he was always around. So I was like, was he living with them too?
Yes.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, because the sons only raise. They're not mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and you can't just have old man Pops Racer fixing every possible car out there.
There was one scene that got me laughing. It was like, the mother came out of the kitchen, and then that other guy came out too. Like, I thought, like, what were they doing in the kitchen together? Is that why he lives here, so he can give Mom Racer the business?
I don't know where Stacey got that idea. That's not how that scene was at all.
Yeah, after that, everyone else came out of the kitchen too, but first it was just those two. And it's like, what were they doing in there?
They were eavesdropping.
Yes.
There's not going to be... Yeah, there's Sprittle? Is that the younger?
Yes, Brittle is the younger brother.
Okay, what was the older brother?
Racer
they just name him as Racer X.
Maybe his name is X Racer. And then when this Racer X showed up, they somehow didn't make the connection.
They don't make a connection on a lot.
Yeah, that's just how it kind of goes.
So, for actor-wise, a standard for Hollywood blockbusters to try and get some names. They got John Goodman to play Pops.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Christina Ricci is Trixie. Susan Sarandon is Mom Racer.
And then the guy from Lost.
Yeah, Matthew Fox was Racer X.
Mm.
At least after he got his face changed. Spoiler alert.
So they got, standard big names in. They got the big name producers. As we've been saying with a lot of this stuff, it's still, a 60s anime, and I think the directors really kept it that way.
Yeah, it was really 60s meets the future.
Yeah, because you have these things where you're watching these races, but people are like, oh, let me pull out my binoculars to watch. It's like...
Apparently they don't have big screens or, body cams or car cams and stuff in the 60s future. You have to... If you want to see the race, you've got to pull out your big honking binoculars and look.
Well, and there was one scene where it was... somebody was up in a suite. It looked like they were watching it on TV, and she still pulled out binoculars.
Well, because it's the operatic binoculars.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because you're going to the big thing, because what defines this world, apparently, is those racing things. As we talked about this before in previous episodes, as directors, you have to kind of make the decision of you're taking it from one medium, animation, to live action, and how do you do that? You can either ignore it and just go
off on your own.
Yeah, it's just live action. World. Yeah. You can do parts of it in CGI. We see that in the Death Note on Netflix original, where everything's just perfectly normal, and then you just have the one bit of CGI.
Right.
You could go a little bit more, like we saw in Full Metal, where they had more effects that were put in. Or in Tokyo Ghoul, where they had more effects but badly done.
Yes. Or you could just go full green screen.
Yes, and that's what they decided to do. Full green screen. Apparently the only place that has that many miles of green screen to use is Germany. So with the green screen, what they decided to do was to shoot everything. Everything possible is shot on a green screen. Mm-hmm. And the color palette is bright.
Yes.
Everything is in...
Primary and secondary colors, they don't really go into shades in a lot of places.
No, not at all. And everything is in focus. There is no background. Everything is layered and then brought into focus. So it's It's jarring to the eye.
Until you get used to it, which is a little bit into the movie, but...
Yeah, as I halfway into the movie, I think I got used to it. It'd be interesting to... Because I saw the movie when it came out, back in 2008, and then we watched it here, and I had the same thing. I was like, oh, this is really jarring, but then it's like, oh, you know, I wonder if I would watch, like, later scenes first, if I would have found them jarring, or if I just got used to it again.
Right.
I don't think it's as bad as what we saw with the Peter Jackson Hobbit movies.
Okay.
Because that one, I don't know, that was all, like, polished.
Oh.
Yeah, and the Hobbit and stuff like that. Like, everything was super high def and stuff like that.
Right, and they kind of put filters and a few other things on it to blend stuff in.
Yeah. I thought that was more eye-jarring. That bothered me for longer watching those films. They were also longer films. But that I think that visually bothered me more than what the Wachowski brothers, now sisters, did with this film here. It's still really jarring, but I can see what they were trying to be like, okay, let's keep it as close to animated as we can while having all live action.
Yeah, it was definitely hard to look at sometimes because it's just like the bright colors and whoa, so many like the action scenes, like super fast moving car scenes and all that. Just sometimes it was dizzying.
Well, also at 2008, it looks like it came out in 3D.
Oh, damn.
Oh, I wouldn't pay for that.
Yeah, which that would have been around the time when 3D was kind of starting to become more prevalent, so it would have been an earlier stage of it too. So that
makes sense why they had like the cars like flying up towards the screen and all that, because they want to capitalize on that 3D premium price.
Well, if anything else, I'll give props to the directors in making this decision and going with it. I think it actually holds up pretty well. You watch it's better than some animations like cheaply thrown out.
Yeah.
You know, like early seasons of South Park. Try to go back and watch those things. And that's the thing with this film is that I think it stands up. It stands up better. And this is what I was reading too. Like on Rotten Tomatoes, it has a really low score. But as the years have gone on, people have actually come out and said it was underrated for its time. And considering it's 10 years, and you have all this technological difference between, and you know, that has happened in the last decade. You were just talking about the 3D and stuff like that. This still looks
similar to what movies that come out now would look like.
Yeah.
Versus like if you were to some of the movies that we watched from the 80s and 90s where you can clearly tell it was from the 80s and 90s.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the other benefits of Speed Races from the 60s. We're going to do the 60s and just somewhat
liven it up
and modernize it. Yeah. But it's still going to be in the 60s, and so 10 years later, it doesn't feel dated.
Right.
Because you're still watching
people pretending to be in the 60s.
Yes.
Gee willikers.
Yeah.
Cool beans.
They had very big, like, 60s Batman moments.
Yes.
Too. The one-liners. People did complain about the delivery and all that, but it's like, you know, going off the source material, going off of trying to be in, you know, the 60s. What it was. I mean, I don't know if that's how they were directed. Like, think that you're in a Batman episode with Adam West, R.I.P., and deliver the line like that.
Right.
Because if that was the direction, they hit it spot on.
Yeah. To the point where you were expecting Bam, Biff, Oof to appear on screen.
I was disappointed in the fight scene that was really set up that way, that there was not Bam, Biff put up there.
Yeah, it was... I did find it very cheesy a lot of times, but I guess that is probably what they were going for, and at least the actors seemed sincere in their cheesiness. Like, they weren't being like, this is dumb. What I'm saying is dumb. They're like, no, they were committed. They were committed to the cheese.
Yes. And I would have to say I genuinely laughed a few times, and not because of the cheese or anything like that. It wasn't like so bad. I wasn't laughing at it. I was kind of laughing with it. So I would say that again, you know, given that it's already 10 years old,
Yeah.
That's a pretty good feat on that end.
Yep.
Some of their attempts of humor didn't work for me. Like, pretty much every scene with the kid and the monkey was like, ugh, I know this is aiming to get the kids laughing, but it's just dumb.
And that's roughly how those scenes went in the original series, too.
It's not a fault of the movie, it's just a fault of...
children.
Yeah, it's just a fault of children being awful. It's just awful.
Think of any current movie that has any sequel. Give any sequel. What is the Hollywood fix to a sequel? Put a kid in it.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my god, it just takes it out. Pacific Rim, too. Put a kid in it. I'm like, that's the worst part of that movie. You can have a younger pilot that needs mentoring and all that sort of stuff, but why was it a kid?
Right.
It didn't need to be a kid.
Get children out of my movies.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, sometimes they're needed, but...
Hashtag no children, is that what you're saying?
Hashtag dinks for life.
Kids aren't going to get that right.
It doesn't matter. This isn't for the kids.
Clearly.
No, maybe in season 2 of Real Japan, we should get some kids and put them in. Another actor that we actually haven't talked about is Rain. Who's a Korean actor, also singer, one of those general superstars. This was his, American debut. Yeah. And the interesting part with him is that he's in one of the action scenes. He's in a ninja fight scene. Because, I don't know, I have to look more into original Speed Racer, but there's this Pan-Asia rather than just a country.
Yeah.
They took a lot of actual countries and kind of combined them together.
Blended
so when they're so when they're doing the rally and they're going through different areas, they're like, oh well, they're starting in Turkey, in Istanbul. I can look at the buildings and I can tell that. But then they're racing to the Sahara and stuff like that, and kind of like a general scene. And then with the Pan-Asia, you can kind of tell that in the family.
Yeah, well, it seemed they were supposed to be Korean because when it showed at their company's headquarters, it had Korean writing on the wall. But they had that actor was Korean. The actress playing his sister was Chinese, and the actor playing their father was Japanese. So I know they think to Americans all Asians look the same, but they really don't. So it was kind of jarring to see that's these are all 3 different countries. Especially the sister, she looked really different from the other 2. And for some reason, she was always wearing cocktail dresses no matter where she went.
If it's the 60s, you have to dress up constantly?
Yeah,
right.
I guess.
Plus, this is high class society.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're owners of one of the giant firms that finances these races.
But yeah, I did find it jarring that they all had different looks, all had different accents, and they're all supposed to be the same family. It's
interesting with the ninja scene, which we'll get to later, but it actually inspired Rain, and that's his stage name, to make a ninja movie called Ninja Assassin. Came out the next year. I remember it as being good, but I don't remember if he assassinates ninjas or if he's a ninja who does assassinations. I think it's standard, my teacher was killed by somebody, he has to, get revenge. After watching Speed Racer, I tried to watch it, but it's not on Netflix.
No. All right.
So... either way, it's interesting that they're like, oh yeah, ninja fight scene, let's make a ninja movie.
Right.
And they put it out a year later.
Where this one took 16.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess with a normal ninja movie, you don't need all of the extra green screen and all the extra production that went into this.
Exactly. They just need people in, ninja outfits.
Yeah. If it's Asia, they're just doing all the stunts. You're not doing any of that with others. By other means, they're just actually doing it.
Right.
Maybe with some wires.
Well, speaking of wires, what this film really tries to show is the races.
Yeah.
Because if you guys haven't got from the name Speed Racer...
It's about racing.
It's about racing. And
racing is about corporations, apparently.
We'll get to that. That's part of the plot that's...
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. And so, it's, again, futuristic. So, think of Mario Kart.
Yep. Yeah, a lot of the tracks, especially in the beginning, all look like Mario Kart tracks. Where you've got, especially from, even though, let's see, this was in 2008, and I think Mario Kart 8 came out in 2011. So maybe that inspired, or Speed Racer inspired Mario Kart 8 with some of their tracks, but they go vertical, doing loops and all other things.
You got spikes. You have all-wheel, like, free access, like, because they can just, like, spin their cars around and keep driving towards the goal.
Front and rear tires can move.
Yeah.
So they're spinning on purpose.
And they use that a lot to battle some sort of refined martial art.
I would call it martial arts.
Yes.
That's how a lot of the lines were delivered in the movie.
Gee willikers, they're doing martial arts.
And so the cars are actually like real cars, at least the Mach 5, what Speed Racer drives, because they made it and they brought it to Comic-Con.
Oh.
And it's a real car and it can drive. And what they did is they put it up on wires.
Like a marionette.
Yeah.
Like a marionette or martial arts movies. You just put them up on wires. And then
so
they
instead
fight.
of the actor, instead of a live actor, it's the car that's the actor.
Yeah. The cars had some of the best acting that I saw in this movie.
Yeah. And once again, everything was shot on the green screen. So the cars are flipping and all that, generally going forward. They have like little pistons on the bottom, like on the jump.
To jump, yeah.
And then as you get later in and you get more into the murkier underworld of racing in this world, they have some extra gadgets. And that's what Speed Racer is also known for, because in the 60s, a lot of these...
Like James Bond and other those kind of movies, you always had a car and it always had special contraptions and things like that, like oil slicks.
Slicks or like self-repairing tires, bulletproof shields because somebody's going to have a gun, like the underarm grabbing thing.
Yeah.
Some of the Vikings, because this is also kind of doing the 1960s Hanna-Barbera Wacky Racers.
Yes. Yes.
And so you have like different teams that are racist stereotypes. Or like, here's the Viking team, and they use like giant flails, and to pay them off, all you need is a bunch of furs.
Yeah.
But once again,
it's like G Gundam level of stereotyping of various cultures.
But I think that's one of the charms of Speed Race, the original Speed Racers in the 60s and stuff like that, is that you would do stuff like that, and it's kind of funny.
Right.
Because like he starts off as like, oh, I'm going to buy off these like Americans with like money, and I'm going to buy off these girl thieves with like diamonds, and it's like, oh, and here's some Vikings, here's furs.
Because why not?
Why not? And that's the funny campy that's going back to the 60s, not just like, oh, is this badly done funny?
Right.
And so I really did enjoy that part, the different racers and stuff like that. So
we didn't really get a good Dick Dastardly during that last race, though.
No, because I think he is the one in charge of the big corporation.
Okay.
Yeah. On the very last race, it was kind of like Speed against all of the other racers who were bought out by the corporations, who are the real enemy.
Well, and that's getting to what the plot of this is. We've talked about
some of the technical stuff,
the technical and all that. So the plot is, and the movie got a lot of complaints about the plot, but again, realize. Yeah. This is a Speed Racer film, so it's not going to be the biggest one. And I think I know where they went wrong. But the general plot is, you have a loving family and they like to race. But there's a dirty underbelly of the racing world, and for some reason, Speed Racer's big brother disappears, and he dies in a race. And his name is smeared through the mud, and there's accusations of cheating and all of that. Well, okay, so I'm going to have to give the spoiler alert, but we already said spoiler alert like 4 times. So if you're this far into the podcast, spoiler alert. What it is that every Grand Prix, the big races, are all fixed, and it's just used by the corporations to
further their
stocks.
Right.
So the plot in this one here is, well, you hear about all that sort of stuff, but what happens is that Speed Racer's approach, he's this up-and-coming star. What's the name of the corporation?
Willy Wonka.
Yeah, the Willy Wonka guy approaches him.
Yeah, so there's this weird Willy Wonka guy that approaches Speed Racer and is like, I will give you whatever you want. Come join me. He's like, I know you're against corporations, but, I built this business from, my garage. I built it from below ground up to here, and I treat everything like this like my family. Come check out my evil lair, check out my corporate headquarters. And there's that's actually probably the worst part of the film for me, is the Willy Wonka tour of the factory.
Right, because you even see Oompa Loompas, sort of.
Like on Segways.
Yeah.
Because it's the future.
Yes.
Yeah, that was probably the most eye-jarring part, because there was just, like, so much shit moving around, and a lot of it was, like, just unnecessary. It's like, we're just going down this hallway, and there's all these people on Segways, just zoom, 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 and all
Well, it's business. It goes fast. It's in Germany. Boom, 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 boom. That's how you make money.
Yeah, you run around on that Segway and you make money. Bam! There's another Euro made right there.
And the single worst moment of the movie is in this single worst scene of the movie, which shows how the drivers are trained. And there's a guy doing what's that? Gymnastic hang?
The Iron Cross?
The Iron Cross, which is just two rings hanging down from a support, and you're holding onto it, and you go down and you stretch out your arms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the guy takes one arm off and touches his nose, and I'm like, wow, this is terrible. I will F this movie. Just on that one scene by itself, I can accept cars battling it out, taking no damage, a monkey running around with no diaper on, because monkeys do shit all over the place. This is why when you see monkeys, really, they tend to have diapers on, unless they're in the wilderness. John Goodman throwing ninjas around, all that. Perfectly fine. I am perfectly fine with all that. But not a guy doing an Iron Cross and then touching his nose. That's not how any of this shit works.
It's a gag, Josh. Get over it.
No, it's breaking the realms of believability. I am fine with Godzilla. I am fine with 5 robots coming together to create a larger robot. I'm not fine with a guy doing an Iron Cross and touching his nose with one hand.
To put an extra piece on that, he didn't drop down or anything like normal gravity would dictate.
That's my problem with it.
That's Josh's issue, is that gravity apparently did not affect this person.
Yeah. Now I'm fired back up. I'm going to change what I was going to give this movie.
Hold on to your ring till the end.
Yes.
Anyway, so this Willy Wonka tour, eye-jarring, but it just showcases, it moves it from like, hey, we're racing, we're a family that comes together, and Speed Racer's really good, to what is the actual plot? And the actual plot is that the Pan Asia Coalition's corporation business,
Yakuza. Legitimate business.
Yeah, pretty much that. They were going to get bought out by the Willy Wonka character.
Royalton Industries.
Yes. Suitably English.
Yes.
Because, Englanders are the villains of
the true villains
things.
of all media.
Exactly. Unless you're James Bond.
Well, they created a lot of their own villains, just like a lot of other people do.
Yeah.
So they're going to get bought out. So what they want to do is they want to win a race that will then cause their stocks to rise up, forcing Royalton Industries to have to pay more for the stocks. Not to stop the purchase, but just to pay more for it.
Right. We're skipping ahead a little bit. Let's back up some. So first, the Speed gets the tour of Willy Wonka's factory.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Okay,
and then he gets presented with a contract to sign with him to race for him, because you'll make a lot of money and you'll win the race. So Speed, being a pure person at this time, does...
I don't think he stops being pure.
No, he doesn't. But
he's pure octane all the time.
Right.
He never puts it in Trixie, so.
Ooh. So he says, this is too much for me. Let me think about it. He goes back with his family. They kind of talk it over a little bit. Pop says, do what you feel. And so Speed goes back to Arnold Royalton, the CEO, and starts to politely turn him down, and then Willy Wonka turns into Emperor Palpatine and says, what the hell are you talking about? I'll give you another chance to say yes.
Come to the dark side.
Yes, and then that's where he explains how the corporations rule everything, and every Grand Prix is fixed and all is determined by the owners of all the mega corporations ahead of time to determine business stuff.
Right.
Normally influencing stock and preventing buyouts, and that's where the plot of the movie comes in, is the Asian family's business is going to be bought out by Royalton, so they want to have assistance in winning this rally race to drive up the cost of their stock, so at least when they get bought out, they can charge more for it and make more money that way.
Right. And by this point, since Speed ultimately did turn down the offer in his next race, the Royalton Industries and all their drivers make sure that Speed loses, crashes, and then cast doubt on the entire Speed Racer family, and and he gets shunned.
Yeah. So like, oh, you have copyright infringement and all that sort of stuff, and it's like it does. And it's funny because how they do this is at this point in time, Emperor Palpatine is pretty much like, if you turn me down, this is what will happen, and then he explains that I will cause you to lose the race. Mm-hmm. I will sue your family, and it doesn't matter if it's true or not. I'll just bury you in legal fees.
Yep.
And then I'll kick your dog. Yeah. And then Speed's like, I don't have a dog. I have a chimp.
Whatever. I'll kick it anyway.
Punch
you anyway.
We'll get to that part later.
So that's where the Racer X comes in and proposes to join forces with the Pan-Asian company for the
rally.
The rally race.
Cross-country, whatever.
Yeah, the cross-country rally. Yeah, and so they're doing this in exchange for a dossier that will expose all of the dealings.
All the bad stuff.
All the bad stuff. And it solves everything. Boom, done. So that's generally the plot. And you see a lot of this actually earlier on with Speed Racer's brother. Mm-hmm. There's this one scene when Speed Racer's still a kid and he picks up Trixie with his sweet little go-kart. Yes. And they show up and they're like, oh, hey, some random person gave me this package to give to you, Pops. And he's like, oh, what's this? And Speed Racer's brother is just like, oh, what's that? Holds it up and he hears ticking. Because remember, this is 1960s.
Yep. Bombs tick.
Bombs tick and people accept packages from strangers.
Yes.
And so his solution to this is to put it into the go-kart, jam a broom into it to cause it to go in reverse, and then have it drive back into the street, the public street, where you see cars drive up and down all the time, and then explodes out there.
Yeah.
So, like...
It was still a localized explosion, so it doesn't leave a crater or anything. It just kind of goes boom, and...
Well, because it's on green screen.
Right.
And the ground's not on green screen.
Yeah.
It just seemed like a dick move to, like, put it in his little brother's go-kart and then roll it out to the street. Like, you could have thrown it and had the same effect and not blown up the go-kart. Like, what the fuck?
Well, not to mention the potential damage that you could have done to anybody like happened to go by at that moment.
There's a street people; they don't matter.
Yeah, and it's a go-kart. It's a mini car. Pops could build one in his sleep.
I guess so. But still, Speed is probably attached to his little car that he only wanted to ever drive and not study at school because books are for nerds.
Yes.
He learned that from his brother.
Yeah, that's a very important lesson to take from this movie.
You could be a nerd or you could be cool.
Yes.
Yeah. So the lesson of this movie is...
Books are for nerds.
Yeah.
Books are for nerds. If you want to be cool, you gotta learn to drive.
Yeah.
Yes.
But you gotta feel how to drive.
Yeah, and don't drive because the corporations want you to drive. You gotta drive because it's in your soul and in your name, like Racer.
Yes.
Yes.
So, getting back to the plot, like, there's a lot of complaints about it, and the reason why I think there is because this is a kids movie, and you have to kind of stop and spend 10 minutes explaining how all this works. And it's just going to slow things down. Like, for me, it's like, okay, this is all business stuff. I can follow this. But for kids...
I don't know what business is.
Yeah, I don't know what stocks are. I don't know what's driving up costs. I just want to see a race. So... For me, it worked fine enough, and you kind of need to know what was the, evil plan on all of this and why everything was going on. Maybe a monologue is not the best method of showing that off, but I don't really know how else you would...
Well, and it wasn't just a normal monologue. It was, like flashback or a montage over a monologue.
Yeah, so I think they actually did a pretty good job of putting this in and, like, still showing stuff, but the complaints I've read online is that it's, like, in the middle it drags because there's a lot of talking.
Yes.
And it's like, well, because the front end of the movie is loaded with racing and the back end of the movie is loaded with racing and more car fighting.
To kind of
to add a plot. Yeah. And so people are like, and in essence, people are complaining that they attempted to add a plot. And then what they added was a little convoluted, but at the end of the day, I think if they went for anything less than that convoluted plot, people would still have complained about it having less of a plot.
Right.
They kind of condensed the plot in some ways by using their head wipe method, where like the scene would change with someone's head going across the scene explaining something as that transitions to the next scene.
Yeah, also kind of very odd.
Yeah, they use that technique a lot throughout the whole film. Like with the race announcers, they do that. And then later when they had plot stuff, it's like, yes, and this is what's happening. And the head is going across. And now it's changing to that scene that they're talking about. It was I guess a unique method, but...
Yeah.
kind of added to the weird look of the movie. With the constant floating heads across the screen.
That's alright.
So, Speed Racer, Racer X, and Rain all get together and they do this cross-country rally. And of course, this is also where you see a little bit more of like your typical story aspects where Speed Racer like defies his father and goes off to do the race without his approval, because this is the race where Speed Racer's brother dies, quote unquote. What you find out though is that Speed Racer's brother like faked his death in this race, had cosmetic surgery to look like the guy from Lost, and then has been racing under the name Racer X, fighting with the
corporations.
No, not fighting.
It's
fighting
basically
with
like Interpol.
Yeah, it's like Interpol for racing.
Yes.
Yes, it's like if the Grand Prix had their own police force.
Right. Well, they are supposed to be monitoring for cheaters and things like that. That's roughly what it's...
Yeah, roughly what they're doing, but...
apparently they can't really do well at all, because it's
terrible at it.
They're in a dust cloud. We can't tell what's happening because, like I said, no like on-car cameras or anything.
Yeah. We didn't think to put cameras in blind spots, or... although there's a helicopter, a couple people have helicopters for spotting, but they don't have cameras mounted to it to...
they have binoculars.
Yes. They have binoculars.
They're good.
Yes. So then they do the race, and they get backstabbed by the corporations.
Shock! Well, yeah, like, because it's a very long race, they have, like, breaks at night between the sessions, and so then, like, after the first racing session, they're all at some hotel, and then ninjas are breaking in to mess with them.
Not mess with them, like...
well, yeah, to murder them, I guess.
Mess with them is like... oh, I've taken your car keys and moved them one drawer lower.
Oh, damn it.
Like, this is
I can't find them.
Like, they poison Rain, so he's, like, paralyzed. Well, not paralyzed, but, like, really weak and can't drive. Right. They're going to inject Speed Racer with something. The ninja just sneaks in with a syringe.
Right.
To do that, you know. Because...
some other kind of sedation.
Yeah, like, you can send ninjas to do the job, but you can't, like, I guess, leave, like... evidence.
Yeah.
But even though there's still the drugs and all that in there. No. Once again, it's that 60s line of thinking that's...
well, if there's no actual evidence, then it was just Speed overdosing on coke.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And Rain poisoned himself while he was sleeping.
Yeah. But then you end up with this Batman-esque fight scene. Not as much as the later one, though.
Yeah.
No, this one is more of WWE wrestling.
Yes.
Well,
when
Pops
comes in,
you see this Greco-Roman wrestling champion ring that he's never had on before, but suddenly does for the point of this scene.
Yeah. That he sleeps with.
Yeah,
he only sleeps with it. That's why you never see him before, because you never see him sleeping.
Right, he only sleeps with this ring just for these types of situations.
Yes, and he comes in and he
flashes the ring, and then German suplex the guy, and then lifts another one up and spins him like a pizza.
Which causes all of his throwing stars to fall out of his pockets.
Yes.
That's how these are secured. And then you see them like thudding into the wall next to people as they just watch this. I think at that point in time I'd probably get out of the room.
No.
But then you have this really odd moment where his keys are also ejected, and they get stabbed against the wall, and you see a keychain that has Peach on in it.
Right.
From Rom to One Half. And it's like the oddest of choices of stuff. Why you would have that in there?
It's just like a nod to the anime fans watching, I guess. Though at this point, Ranma was pretty old in 2008, so... yeah,
because it was like in the 90s...
maybe that was a holdover from production.
Maybe. Like
that one detail stayed in the script all the way through. It's like, it's gotta be a Peach-on keychain.
Yeah, because Ranma came out after Speed Racer.
Yeah.
By 20 years. So I don't... like I said, I like the little nod to it. I'm just unsure why it was Ranma when happened.
Maybe the Wachowskis are fans of Ranma.
Right.
Well, that's probably what it is.
Because they know that they say The Matrix had a lot of anime influence and stuff. So perhaps they were just fans and they wanted to put that little nod in.
Well, maybe they're like, oh, we'll do a little gag. Go get an anime keychain. That was the only one they could find. Maybe we're just reading into why it's Peach-on more than necessary.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was a character from Hello Kitty, but I didn't fully recognize it as...
What, have you ever seen Robin 1/2?
I have.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I just
Ringo when it turns into a little pig.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, Josh is the only one who noticed it on the first watch. We had to rewind it and go back
Right.
and make sure, like, oh yeah, it was. So Josh is finally tuned to all Ranma-related things.
More than that. Give me some credit.
Yeah, so the Korean being poisoned leads to Trixie taking over for part of his race, which kind of, we never got any hint before that she was a capable driver.
I think if you hang out with the racer family,
I guess you just absorb it.
you're going to do that. I think, once again, it's a nod to the original. Trixie ends up driving at some point.
Yeah.
Just like Pops does pick up people and spin them around and throws them. That happens in the original.
Right.
The monkey attacking people with a monkey wrench happens in the original.
Yeah.
Like I said, there's a lot of nods to the original. So if you've seen Speed Racer, the main actor actually watched every episode of Speed Racer before doing the movie.
Yeah, to prepare for the part.
Yeah. So I think there's quite a bit keeping it as much as you can. Yeah, so you get into this, again, kind of complicated scene, but Trixie pretends to be the Korean driver at the same time that the Korean driver is dealing with these English gangsters you actually saw earlier in the movie that he was tangoing with, and another kind of silly 1960s style fight scene where they like shoot at Racer X and the office is like in the back of a truck and there's a piranha going more with that Bond villain-esque thing. It's like, I'm going to feed your hand to the piranha so you'll never
and then
hand stuff again.
Yeah.
And then a hole gets shot in the aquarium, and the big boss is like, the water's leaking out. My piranhas are gonna die. You, Minion X, put your finger in the hole.
Yes, because rather than just, like, covering it with your hand and not putting it at risk of the piranhas biting it, of course, it has to go into the hole.
Yeah.
Or finding any other object in the room that could also go into that hole.
That's how you plug a hole.
Yes, I guess so.
You put your finger in it.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
That's just how you do it.
Anyways, yeah, and that's one of the other detraction I have read is that a lot of these things are kind of convoluted. Yeah. Because then you have Trixie driving and then like stop off
They stop
up in the
behind.
Swiss, in the Swiss Alps where there's no cameras.
Yeah.
And they even make a comment of that. It's like, oh, well, now they've headed up into the mountains. There's no possible way we'll ever know what happens up there.
Right.
Hopefully they come out alive. But of course, there's no cheating involved.
No.
Yeah.
And they stop off and they manage to capture the English villain.
Yeah. It's like was it the mobster's son? Or
No, this is the mobster.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Oh, that's right,
then
that was
his
the mobster
people,
himself.
but then his people come to the show up, and there's a lot of, well, now you fall into our trap. It's like, no, we were expecting this, and then that's where that Batman fight scene that really needed those biff bams in there, ensued, and then you just have everybody duking it out because that's what happens,
Right.
Yeah.
And
why wouldn't you?
And then what? The chimp gets a gun.
The chimp got a gun just because I don't think it shoots anything. It
No, but it still like kind of wraps up the fight.
Yeah,
and they're like, "Oh shit, we're in a race," and they watch as their opponents drive past them.
Like, maybe we should stop having this Batman fight and go actually race again.
Yeah, but I'm also not sure. Like again, they're being supported by Interpol. Why was Interpol there? Why wasn't they ready to pick them up? Why did they stop? Right, you don't need all three people to go through. They could have kept going, but what they also need to do all three of them have to go?
No, only one has to officially win, but it's still a team.
Yeah, so
you can't leave your teammates behind.
Yeah, we're all Nakama.
Well, the other thing they were doing there is that they were swapping out for the sister of the Korean guy who's Chinese.
Yeah.
So she could drive through because at this point in time, this is like the final bit of it, and that's what they needed. So when they got out of the cars, it's not Trixie. It's somebody in the family, because that's how the rules work.
Yeah.
So that's why they were having Trixie driving, because she could actually drive, and then they had to stop off at this spot to swap out drivers.
So the Chinese girl in her cocktail dresses could drive for a few minutes.
Yes.
And then Trixie could go back up into the helicopter and play Navi again.
The pink helicopter.
Oh.
Very important detail.
Oh, yes.
It's like, Speed Racer. I forget what she even says, but it was like constant.
Hey, listen.
Look, listen.
Yeah.
She did turn into Navi for a little bit.
Well, for the rally race. Yeah. So So they're still behind. They finish up the race.
More car gymnastics.
More carshal fu. And then what happens is that the Pan Asia Corporation betrays them. And it's like, we only did this to drive up the cost of our stocks, just like you were told was going to happen.
Yep. And Royalton begrudgingly buys the company for $78 per share instead of $50 per share.
Yeah, it seems that, I don't know, maybe it's because of the 60s, but yeah. For all that work, it doesn't seem to be that real nefarious.
Right.
It's just like a slight inconvenience to him.
Yeah.
Because he's like already like a billionaire Willy Wonka guy. It's like, it doesn't seem like he couldn't afford that anyway, so.
Well, I mean, it's increasing the cost by $50,000, by 50%.
Right.
So I can see where that would come up, but it's not like it stopped the buyout.
No.
They just got paid more.
Yeah, he just kind of hemmed and hawed for about 3 seconds and said, yeah, okay, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. That part was a little weird because of that. It's like, oh, he spent all this time explaining this, that this, all this is rigging for stocks, and then it's just like, oh, this got 50% more.
Yeah, he's a big corporate guy. He wants to save money.
Well, no,
and that's where, because if they had lost, then instead of buying them for $50 a share, it would have probably tanked to like $25 a share.
Oh, true. Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Either way, it's still, they get bought out.
Right. Asian company gets their payday.
Yep.
And
they don't deliver the dossier, so the whole thing has just been nothing more than corporations using them.
Yeah.
But then, luckily, the sister has a change of heart, and she comes and she delivers the winning ticket, because the other thing about winning the rally race is that you get a free
pass into the Grand Prix.
Into the Grand Prix, yes. Which Royalton Industry has prevented the racer family from going in by attacking them in the qualifying rounds.
Right.
So they get their revenge, and of course, they only have 36 hours to build a brand new car.
It was 72.
Yeah.
They had 3 days and to build it and get there. A big feat of strength from Pops and Sparky.
Well, everybody chipped in. Like the chimp was spray painting the car and all that sort of stuff.
Mom made the sandwiches.
Yes,
because that's what Mom does
in 1960s.
Yes,
I think they actually did show the mom working on the car a bit, but also bringing in sandwiches.
And then, of course, then you get to the final Grand Prix and the race there, and the big thing that's supposed to happen, other than just winning, is they got to expose the cheating. So at this point in time, the Emperor Palpatine character is like in a rage that
Speed made it to it, and that he's being allowed to participate. Yeah,
even though the rules are all legit and everything else. And so that's actually one time where the Interpol guy works out.
Yeah, he actually is able to step in and say something.
Yeah, he's like, no, you have to allow him the race. All the rules are legit.
Yeah.
Yes, because apparently you can just steal a ticket and get into the race.
No, they were very clear on it, because remember, they do over-explain some things.
Yes. Because he was on the team that won, he's allowed to use the ticket.
Yes. And you have to show up on the day with the ticket, and then you can use it.
Right.
If you show up the day before and say, no, you can't do that. You have to show up on the day of the race, present the ticket.
Again, Willy Wonka and the golden ticket.
Yes.
He had the golden ticket, but Willy Wonka didn't want him in the factory this time, but he couldn't get around the rules.
Exactly. So they do the race. Bounties put out on Speed Racer's head, and
another one. This one not paid in furs.
Yes. Yeah, instead of being paid... see, that was his problem. He paid all those other people in the rally race before the race.
Yeah.
And now he's just like, well, I'll pay you guys after you do it.
Yeah.
So I don't think this guy's as good as a businessman as we've been saying he is.
Well, was Willy Wonka really a great businessman?
He had a candy empire that nobody could touch.
I guess so. Candy monopoly.
Yeah, candy monopoly.
And this one, he's got an actual monopoly of everything.
So, we talked about this before. There seemed to be like a distinct lack of cameras places. Luckily, there's a camera in a place right where Speed and the evil German guy, because again, this is,
the 60s, and
the
villains
tend to be Germans.
German.
Yeah. And they're locked together because like this arm that grabs people underneath. and is able to do a jump right in front of the camera, showing how Royalton Industries is cheating at this moment.
Yes.
Leading to Royalton flipping over an ice sculpture, and everybody kind of like leaving.
Flip and
everybody's like leaving, and then you see the Japanese guy of the Pan Asia family just going like, you're shaking their heads like, shame, we've all done this, but you've been found out, shame. And then he leaves, and now he's devoid of friends, and he has been caught cheating, and the Royalton Industries is going to go under, and it's a triumph over capitalism. The other complaint in the movie is that the message is anti-capitalism.
Right. I would think more anti-big business, because it was big business trying to take over a small mom and pop shop.
Well, usually when people are anti-capitalist, they tend to be like anti the big business aspect of the capital. It's capitalism with a big C, as opposed to just like people making their life for themselves.
Right.
But there's like, big business runs everything.
Yes.
So
not mom and pop, it's mom and pops.
Yes.
Racer. Ha.
So of course he wins. They drink milk. They talk about milk. We had to look this up because I remember seeing it in like actual racing. What it is weird bits in history where like one of the winners in the first like Indy 500, the guy just like drinking buttermilk. And so he won. He's like, I'm going to refresh myself with some buttermilk. And then like the dairy big business corporations, it's like, a lot of people see this. We're going to make sure that every winner of the Indy 500 drinks milk at the winner's circle. And that's been continued on. Again, big business.
So you think the dairy industry fixes it so no one lactose intolerant ever wins a big race?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely so. Or they have to suck it up.
Yeah. Or they would find some way to get them to drink at least some kind of substance that looks like milk.
Oh, yeah. I guess just
soy milk or almond milk.
Oh, I thought you were going with a Dojin.
Whoa.
No, I'm not going there.
This is a PG-rated podcast.
Yes.
Well, that last,
like the movie.
That last statement is for our Patreon subscribers.
No, it's not.
No. And he finally kisses Trixie. She's been trying to get him to do it the whole time. And he's like, shut up, babe, I need to race.
Yeah.
Once I win the big race, I can kiss you.
Yes.
Yes.
Because that's the only way I'll get excited enough that I'll find you attractive.
Besides my car.
Yeah.
But we have to be in my car when we kiss.
Yes.
Otherwise, it just doesn't work.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's another scene after that where he confronts Racer X to say that, I know you're my brother, you drive just like him, and blah, blah, blah.
And Racer Batman X said, no, I'm not here, look at my face.
Here, see, look at my face. And he takes off the mask, and he's like, oh, okay, you're not my brother.
Even though you drive like him, your speech pattern's the same like him, you like loose women like him.
Oh. And that's when we get a scene that we see as the audience at the very end, where it shows how he got a facial surgery so he looked different.
Yeah, he's faked everything else like that. And I think what they're doing here is that they were thinking that they were going to have a sequel. And they were leaving it open.
Right.
But,
so you could have that reveal later.
Yeah, so maybe in 6 years from now, we'll have that.
Right. Maybe it's been in production. We don't know.
Well, they didn't do all that well, so I think they kind of have stopped any plans on that one. But that's what they were doing at the end of the movie, was just kind of setting it up for a sequel. The oddest fact about this movie, so they have the chimps, right?
Right. They had two
chimpanzees. Yeah, because they got to swap them out to do stuff.
When one starts shitting everywhere.
Yeah.
Right.
And apparently when one starts shitting everywhere, what happens is that the handler punches them.
Right. Because we're in Germany and you can do that.
And you can do that. But they still have the American Humane Society people watching.
Right. Because you have to do that because it's being produced by an American film company.
Yes.
And you have animals on set.
So at the very end of the credits, it says...
The animal action was monitored by the Humane Society, which we noted was different from the usual
Animals were not harmed during the production of this film.
Yes, because we heard about that fact, so we wanted to see what it would say at the end, and we noticed it was definitely different. So now you know, if you see that it doesn't say no animals were harmed and it just says the action was monitored, that means some animals got harmed.
Yes, and so while we're watching the film, we're like, oh shit, is this the monkey that got a chimp?
Yeah.
Is that racist?
Yeah,
Are chimps monkeys?
Chimps are not monkeys, I believe.
Okay,
They're different.
We're not going to fact check this.
You've been racist the whole time.
Gotcha. Which chimp got punched?
Right.
Is it the one in this scene? Is it the one in that scene? I don't know.
And like, what happened in that scene that resulted in the punch?
Apparently, it bit the kid.
Ah.
Yeah. So.
Well, I mean, the kid was annoying. I would bite the kid too if I were a chimp.
Well, and the kid and the monkey were trapped in the trunk of the Mach 5 the entire movie, so it was bound to happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's probably the oddest fact. I mean, other than it spawned a ninja movie.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Generally, let's say the movie's a fun movie that has a lot of odd facts, a lot of.
Yeah, it has its craziness in it, but it still kind of just comes from the original series.
Exactly.
There's probably a manga too at some point, right?
I'm not even sure.
Overall, it's still better than Initial D.
Oh, hey, let's not.
To be fair, the only thing worse than Initial D is a guy doing an Iron Cross arm hang and touching his nose.
Oh, you went back to that, so now your rating's going to be lower, isn't it?
Like I've been saying through this podcast, I actually did enjoy it.
So, yeah, there was a lot of different things going on during the races. Like you said, the tracks are a lot like Mario Kart. You've got the martial arts of the springs, or whatever it is that launches the cars, that they jump, and then they end up doing flips and spinning around in circles and punching other cars in the face the whole time to jockey for position. The action scenes in it were good and placed well. You got your nostalgia goggles in place for it, so you got all the various things that happen throughout the original series kind of happen here, of the various contraptions in the Mach 5 and everything that it can do. There's another part where they installed a wheel shield to prevent another car has like spikes that pop out of their the wheels, just like you see in Bond and Looney Tunes cartoons, to try and puncture the tires. Well, to try and prevent that, they installed a shield that pops out of Speed Racer's tires, and so as Speed is driving with his thumb, he's trying to control the shield to prevent the other car from popping his tires out, which was a little strange.
Yeah, that was a little odd because you're also like driving super fast.
Yeah,
and have to deal with other things.
Yeah, you're going 100 miles an hour ish, and then also with your thumb, you're trying to block and parry.
Something you can't see.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's down on the wheel. Well,
you see him
by
look
side.
back. You see him look backwards.
Yeah, but
they're
side by side. I don't know how they have to see that. And we also know that because one of the other races when they're up in the Swiss Alps, his tires get punctured,
right,
and he jumps into the air, has his tires repair,
yes,
and keeps going.
Yeah.
Or when he gets knocked off, also once again in the Swiss Alps, and he lands down and he has the spiked treads.
Oh, so that he can climb up the face of the mountain.
Yeah. So, also something I would consider cheating is that he was behind in the Swiss Alps and then decided to just like
drive down and take a shortcut.
It's like I'm just going to skip this half of the map.
Right.
It's fine.
Again, it's a Mario Kart race.
Yeah.
You can do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Just use a feather to jump over the gap and boom.
Yeah, so he does that. So it's Mario Kart.
Yeah.
Overall, as long as you take out the Iron Cross arm hang, I'm going to give this 7 blue shells out of 10.
Blue shells.
It's Mario Kart.
Yeah, I know. I will give it 3.5 pinball cars out of 5.
Well, I think overall I enjoyed it. I think I liked it more than the first time I saw it back when it came out, though it was still eye-jarring and some annoying parts with like the kid and the chimp and all that, but and then the cheesiness, but that kind of worked in its favor, so I'll give it 6 punch chimps out of 10.
Again, Stacy being the violent one on the set.
Yeah, this is why we don't give her any alcohol anymore.
Get my own alcohol.
Well, this has been another riveting episode of Real Japan.
Like rivets in cars.
We made it.
Yes.
Please check us out at anabroscreative.com, as well as all of our partner podcasts, including
Ujoshi Trash Talk.
And Annie Bros.
And others.
Yeah.
I just spend my time watching movies.
Yeah.
I don't spend my time listening to the podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, why would we listen to the B team?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, damn.
That's right. You're not going to listen to this, Evan, to know that we call him the B team.
No. The only one that might is Robo Kenny. And he's part of the D team.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Thank you for listening.
See ya.
Sign off. What are they going to do, fire you?